Hi everybody and welcome to the second assignment, second flipped collaborative for this unit. The following is a really good start for you for your assignment 2, and we will be having a live session, so watch out for the date. But here's an outline of assignment 2, case study, and I hope it helps you get started with the assignment. So in a nutshell, this assignment is worth 30%. It's 1,500 words, and it's an analysis and a response to a scenario considering legal and ethical obligations. The due date is the 7th of May. Now, this is a case study, so it's sort of like an essay format, and we'll explain that further along in this discussion. So where to start? So it's always a good idea to highlight the key words in the assessment file to see if you're either describing or analysing, and ensure that you are doing what is required for the assignment. So this is an analysis, so think about your skills of analysis. You want to read the descriptors within the rubric to understand and ensure that you are meeting all of the needs of the criteria to pass this assignment, and check the weight of each of those criteria, because that's going to really help you show how much emphasis to put on each section and how many words to use for each section. So we need to read the scenario, and we'll do that in a minute to work out where to go from there. So this assessment asks you to analyse a scenario and identify the issues responding to each of the key stakeholders. You need to investigate and discuss the legal and ethical obligations that you would use, and you would have to think about if you were in this scenario and you were the early childhood professional there. You'd want to explain what you would do, how you would respond at that time of the situation, and also what you do in the longer term. So this may be what you do later on that evening or the next day or the next week, and you could discuss who's involved there in relation to further planning for what happened with this scenario. So you want to draw on weeks 5 and 6 to help you start thinking about this. So if the scenario is Lee's mother Anna has come to collect him from your kindergarten today. As Lee's teacher, you greet Anna with a smile and hello, but notice that her eyes look bloodshot and there's the distinct smell of alcohol on her breath. She appears uneasy, and when you ask if everything was all right, she responds with a somewhat blurred yes, and calls out to Lee, "Hurry up, we have to go and get your sister from school." So you are concerned that she may be under the influence of alcohol, and notice that she's alone and carrying car keys. The school and their home are some distance away. We want to identify the issues here that relate to not only the child and Anna, but all of the stakeholders involved here. So you want to think about everyone who's affected by this scenario. You also want to be thinking about what aspects of this scenario require ethical consideration, and which ones require legal obligations and policies and procedures and things like that. So your response requires you to describe what you're going to do in relation to the key stakeholders and your ethical and legal responsibilities as an early childhood professional. And it is sometimes difficult to determine which is legal and which is ethical, which is why you need to look at your documents such as duty of care, code of ethics, your national regulations, centre policies, and determine which ones of these are legal and which ones of these are ethical. And you'll find out as you begin to research for this that there is a blurred line between them both. As many of the way that you handle this situation will involve both ethical and legal considerations. So it's probably a good idea to read the scenario a couple of times, because what appears quite simple has actually got many complexities to it, and you want to be thinking about it from everybody's different perspective. So think about all of the stakeholders in this scenario. There's the child and Anna, yourself as the educator, are the other educators within the service, the sister who needs to be picked up. So we need to think about everyone who is in this scenario and think about them in relation to your own professional, legal and ethical responsibilities. So when faced with an ethical dilemma such as this one, and when you do weeks 5 and 6 activities, it's going to really help you start thinking about this. So make sure you do jump in there and do the week 5 and 6 activities and readings, because they really directly relate here. So there are no rules about excuse me, how to proceed here. It really is up to how you decide to use your ethical and legal obligations and duty of care to act in the best interest of the child. So Kearns says to explore the issue first. What are the needs and beliefs of each party? Try and put yourself in their shoes and think about the responsibilities there. This will allow you to reflect and look at it from different perspectives. Consider your moral and legal obligations. So an important document for this assignment is the ECA Code of Ethics, and I've actually put a link to that there in the discussion board in week 5, weekly activities, so make sure to have a look at that. So how to use the Code of Ethics to support the analysis of this investigation. So what you can do is you can have a look at the Code of Ethics, and I've downloaded the Code of Ethics brochure in the week 5 weekly activity, which really summarises it quite well. And I don't want to see direct quotations from it throughout this case study. I want you to use particular points from it and integrate it within the case study to demonstrate which parts of the Code of Ethics you feel would be applicable to this situation. And it is divided into your ethical responsibilities to yourself, your colleagues, families, and the children. So you need to consider all of these aspects as well. Now, the first part of the assessment criteria is analysis, and this is worth 25%. So you need to analyse the situation, which means you need to dissect it and pull it apart, so to speak. So you want to look at all the different stakeholders and what it means to them. So what does it mean for Anna? What does it mean for Lee? What does this scenario mean for you and the other educators? Look at all of these stakeholders in an ethical and legal way in relation to those documents, and try to break it down as to which documents you would refer to in this particular situation. So what we need to think about in this situation is that we're not acting based on personal values and beliefs. We need to act on this situation in a professional way based on these documents. And that's the key there, that you are basing your decision and reaction to this scenario based on the documents that you will be using, ethically and legally. And here's an example of an analysis. So you can read that in a minute. I'll provide these slides on the discussion board, and that will sort of help you get started with your analysis and demonstrate the kind of depth required there. The second criteria is your investigation, and this is where you want to have an in-depth discussion of the legal and ethical obligations. You want to demonstrate why you've chosen the legal and ethical documents that you've chosen, and demonstrate their relevance to this particular situation. So you want to provide supporting evidence from that literature. So you could be thinking about legislation, regulations, code of ethics, definitely centre policies and centre procedures. So we're assuming this is happening at the end of the day at a centre, at a service. So you'd be thinking about your departure, maybe emergency policies, and anything else you consider would be a policy applicable to this time of the day and for this scenario. Excuse me. The third criteria is response, and this is worth 30%. So you want to consider the issue and obligations and explain what you would do. You would demonstrate your understanding of the legal and ethical obligations and complexities of professional practice. Yeah, and that's a really good point. In complexities, if it's difficult for you to start discussing complexities, think about the reasons for using certain documents and think about the reasons for not using certain documents. So really look at both sides of it from different perspectives. So your response, analysis and discussion will all weave together. However, you can set out your case study in a number of ways, which I'll discuss in a minute. And this is an example here of a response. So this could be a response you could use here. So I won't read that, but you can have a look at that later, and that will show you how the response could look like in this case study. This is a case study, however, it can be set up as an essay with a short introduction and conclusion, which I will outline in a minute. As long as it's well structured and in a logical order, I think there's quite a bit of flexibility here as to how you want to set it out. And many of you are in further stages of your degree, so you should have the skills here to be able to set this out in a way that's logical. So you can write it up, as I said, as an essay, as a case study, however, with an introduction and conclusion. There's some, you could also include appendices. So if you want to include, say, for example, a centre policy, that's fine. So you can make sure you look at your APA referencing guide so you can see how to include that accurately, but that could be a useful thing to include there to demonstrate your analysis. So the essay will have an introduction and conclusion. Now, it's important to remember that an introduction isn't just providing context of the topic. You really want to introduce it, and you want to talk about what you're going to discuss within this case study. And in the same way, the conclusion is not just restating what you've already said. It is more about gathering the evidence you have and presenting it in a summary, an overarching paragraph demonstrating that you've come to some sort of conclusion from everything that has been in the essay. So I don't want to see exactly what you've just said in the essay. I want to see something different, an overarching summary of what you have established from the findings in this case study. So you can use headings here for your findings. There's a number of different, you can set this out in any order you want. You can use headings. You could weave discussion together and not use headings. That's completely up to you. This is a suggested format here. So your introduction would be roughly 100 words, which is quite a short introduction. Analysis, 250 words. Your investigation and your response, which are worth most in the criteria, are 500 words each, and a conclusion, 150 words. So that's a rough guide, and you can set it up however you like. So think about that when you're thinking about your assignment. Now here I've included some resources that are going to be really useful as you get ready for this assignment, so make sure to read those as well. So a couple of things to highlight as well is that headings are appropriate here. It's not an essay, but it will have an introduction and conclusion. You can order your paragraphs or findings however you feel is logical. As you are, you will be able to do this, and there's not a set way to do it. And I think the discussion will weave quite a lot because you want to be mentioning the ethical and legal considerations throughout the whole assignment. Make sure to discuss all of the stakeholders in relation to those legal and ethical obligations and follow the criteria. But when we do our live session, we will be having some more activities where you can provide feedback and comment. So I hope that's useful as well. But I hope this flipped collaborative session helps you get going with assignment 2. See you on the discussion boards.